like to welcome everyone to our seventh Oakbrook Business Network meeting of 2021. I'm very excited this morning to welcome all of you who are here on Zoom with us, as well as on Facebook Live, and our guest speaker this morning, Mark James. My name is Michelle Sherritt. I am one of the owners and board members of the Oakbrook Business Network. Before we begin this morning, I'd like to cover some brief housekeeping items and tell you a little bit more about our network of business groups. We are comprised of 5 powerful networking groups in the local Chicago area. We have the Oakbrook, Naperville, Northwest, Windy City, and North Shore business networks. Our groups were started back in 2008 on LinkedIn and have grown to be the largest networking groups within LinkedIn. We decided to take the groups live about 2 years ago, and we also trademarked all of the names. And we now have over 332 paid members. We're still growing even during COVID, and we'd love to have you become a member as well. Let me tell you just a little bit about our membership. You can find out more on our website, and I'll give that to you in just a moment. Our yearly membership is $3.99 a year, and this includes all of your monthly meetings and breakfasts at those meetings. We normally meet at the Oakbrook Fitness Building located in the McDonald District in Oakbrook, and we'll start back up our in-person events starting in August. We're very excited about that. Included in our membership are many different advertising opportunities for our members, including a podcast interview where we broadcast to over 400,000 subscribers. We have monthly happy hour events as well, and we have 4 quarterly dinner formal events. So all of those are included within your membership. All meetings, happy hours, dinners are open to the public as well for a fee, of course, depending on the event, to allow for our members to always be networking with new folks. During COVID, we offered more advertising opportunities to our members, and we're going to continue to do so and provide those same advertising opportunities. So please get in contact with us to learn more, or you may visit our website at oakbrookbiz.net. Today's talk, we ask that you keep yourself muted unless you have a question. Then you may unmute yourself when we have Q&A time at the end. Or you may type your questions as you think of them in the chat box. If you are on Facebook Live, please simply type your comments into the comment section and we will go ahead and moderate those at the appropriate time. Today's talk is being recorded. We are live on Facebook to all of our 5 networking groups. And the recording will be made available later on today at our website at oakbrookbiz.net. Today's speaker is Mark James. Mark is an accomplished business improvement advisor with over 40 years of experience in data-driven marketing, workplace performance, and measurement. Mark is the founder and president of Performance Advisors Group, where he helps companies achieve customer loyalty and sustainable growth. Today, Mark will be speaking to us on how to use Einstein's 3 rules of work to help a business succeed in the new normal. Welcome, Mark. The floor is yours.
Michelle, thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. Hope you all had a great weekend. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope I'm going to be able to impart a little bit of wisdom from Einstein's genius today. I'm going to have a disclaimer. It's not my genius, it's his. I'm merely the messenger. So as Michelle mentioned, we'll have some Q&A at the end. So if you could hold your questions until that point, and I think we'll have plenty of time to do that, because I'll be able to wrap up my presentation well within the usual time frame that you allot. So I'll go ahead and get started. With life in general, and especially in today's environment, we don't exactly know what's going to happen in today's world, especially what we've all been experiencing for the last year. But you can be ready for whatever does. So today I'm going to offer some ways to use Einstein's genius to improve the way businesses and employees work. Sometimes my first slide advance is a little bit difficult to do, so I'm going to do this. There we go. It's natural to concentrate on keeping things running day to day in a business, but over time, as we know in any business, complexity can tend to replace simplicity, discord can upend harmony, and opportunities can go missing. Now would be a perfect time to apply Einstein's rules of work that were inspired by his work in a particular business, to find those barriers that build up over time, to clean up the clutter. I like to use the example with the picture here. Clutter can be, a drawer in your work tool, your tool bench, or your kitchen. You have that junk drawer. From time to time, you got to clean up the clutter. Same thing can happen in a business. Separate what's working from what's not, and to expose opportunities that are always there that quite often are very hidden. But before I get into some actions that any business can and should do to eliminate those barriers and clean up the clutter and find out what's working and what's not, I want to first set the stage with some common barriers that I think all of you will recognize, and maybe you've encountered these in your businesses from time to time. Einstein's way of thinking was about making the complex simple. And he was a master at it, as we all know. When you think about the stuff that he was able to simplify in terms of how the universe works, he was a master at it. And ever since I first read these 3 rules, I kept thinking about how they would apply to business today. And I know that based on my experience, and I think all of you would probably agree, that every business will struggle to solve some or all of these performance barriers from time to time. And as I looked at the barriers and I thought about the 3 rules, I realized that his rules can help us clearly visualize and fix these kinds of things that you see in the screen. Let me comment about some of these, because some of them may not be as obvious as others. First and foremost, poor communication is a very common and destructive barrier in a business. If we recall from the laws of physics, nature doesn't like a vacuum. And I would contend that in businesses, it's the same. In the context of communication, absent clear communication, things tend to become cluttered and inaccurate. For example, there's research that I've followed for years from the Conference Board and from the Human Capital League to make the point here. Conference Board research has found that for a typical organization, 2/3 of the employees are only 1/3 as productive as they could be, because they simply don't understand what they're being asked to do. Likewise, research from Human Capital League found that, again, for a typical organization, only 42% of the employees know their own organization's mission, values, and vision. On the flip side, we all know that good communication will lead to a culture where equally informed people will seldom disagree. Another one that's on the screen that may not be as obvious: what do I mean by perfection obsession? Well, perfection is a noble outcome. We want to be perfect at everything in life, but being obsessed with being perfect and achieving perfection can actually get in the way of getting the job done. Technomania is another term here that maybe you've not heard before. That's a term that I've invented. Technomania is simply believing that technology can solve everything. And I would contend it cannot. And for example, I have yet to encounter any technology that can overcome an employee who does not make a customer feel welcome or appreciated. So the focus on technology as a proper tool in business is important, but not an over-reliance on it. Ineffective marketing can also add complexity and discord to an organization by wasting time and money and precious resources. And finally, poor processes, politics, sacred cows, and silos complicate things and kill harmony wherever they exist. They contribute to as much as 50 to 75% of the activity that employees perform in a typical business to add zero value to the final outcome. So let's talk about some particular steps and actions, again, that any business can and should do. And I'll start with how to clear the clutter. 4 ways to clear clutter here. And again, any business can and should do these things. It's very important to always be looking at and evaluating your processes and how you do your work and how the business operates. And the key is to isolate what's necessary to get the job done and separate that from what is not necessary to get the job done. And I'm not going to get into an involved discussion of process analysis and process improvement. That's a very complex topic all in itself, but I will tell you that the essence of good evaluation of processes and workflows is all about asking 2 things, or asking 2 questions for every step in a process or your operation. For that particular step or part of the process or operation, number 1, what is being done, by who, for who, and why? And then the second question to ask for that step or part of the process or operation, does this get us closer to our goals or the final outcome that we desire? You use the answers to those questions to help you understand and separate what's necessary from what's not and get rid of what's not necessary. Again, clutter can come into an organization and in the way the business operates. And the best way to eliminate that clutter is to understand what's not working and what shouldn't be that's kind of crept itself into the operation. So you use the answers then to help you do that. And get rid of things like sacred cows. Sacred cows are a very common affliction, if you will, in any given business. And sacred cows are basically things everyone is pretending to be necessary when in fact they probably aren't. Number two, it's very important to make sure that technology is exactly fit to the core needs of the business. Remember what I said about technomania? There's a tendency to overbuy and over rely on technology, and trying to perfect or digitize everything with technology does not necessarily guarantee effectiveness. I'm not down on things like artificial intelligence and other technological solutions that are part of today's world. They have their place, but just make sure that they are perfectly matched to the core needs of the business, and also that they are fostering the customer experience as opposed to blocking it. So carefully evaluate whether all the technology you are spending on is absolutely necessary. Number three, it's very important to communicate in clear and unambiguous terms the values, mission, and vision of the organization. And don't assume that every employee knows what those are, as I mentioned from the Human Capital League research. Less than half of employees in many organizations don't even know what their organization's vision, mission, and values are. And if we accept for a moment that values, mission, and vision together explain to the customer, to employees, to channel partners, and everyone, this is what you can expect or what you should expect in interacting with this organization. So if more than half the people who are responsible for delivering the experience don't know what those things are, it's going to be very hard to deliver them properly. So now would be a very good time, especially after the distractions of the last year, to the extent that we've had plenty of them. Now would be a very good time to reintroduce an organization's core values, mission, and vision. And don't let messages about those three things get lost competing for attention with everything else. It's not enough to put it on the wall in a coffee break room or in an employee manual and check the box and say, okay, we've covered that, we've communicated it. You constantly and consistently reinforce and talk about values, mission, and vision. Number four, in terms of clearing the clutter, organizations with fewer rather than more meaningful key results metrics that they use to report and track performance for the organization as well as individual employees will do better, and you reduce employee confusion when you limit your key metrics that you're asking people to follow and to look at. And the rule of thumb, based on some research by the Workforce Accountability Study, is to have 3 to 5 key results metrics max for a particular aspect of the business or for particular individuals or team members. Let's talk about finding harmony. You know, discord happens when there's disagreement. And a key symptom of discord, that discord exists, is that you find that there's a temptation on the part of people to prove someone else wrong. The opposite occurs in harmony, where people help each other to make a difference together. Let me repeat that. My definition of harmony is helping people to make a difference together. 3 tips to put into action here as a manager or a leader or as a key player in an organization. Coach more and manage less. You know, there's no rule of thumb that says that good leaders do good coaching and poor leaders merely direct traffic. So coaching is a good part of good leaders. Are your expectations clear to everyone in the organization? Again, back to that conference board research, 2/3 of people don't understand what they're being asked to do. Be visible and available to employees like never before, especially if you're in an organization where you have more remote employees than you did before the last year and all the events that have occurred. Eliminate those distractions that are keeping you from them. As a leader or as a manager or as a key player in an organization or on a team, we all have our own jobs to do. but it's very important to stay in touch with the people on our teams and our employees, and to give frequent feedback in the moment whenever possible, rather than waiting for more formal weekly meetings or annual reviews. Create dialogue by asking questions and listening a lot. And one specific tip that I've seen others recommend, and I agree with it, when you're in a conversation with an individual on the team or a team in general, plan to listen just 1 minute longer, because it does a couple of things. Number one, it shows that you're interested in what your team members have to say, and it also gives you that extra minute to pick up some feedback or information you may not have gotten otherwise. Number two, it's very important to encourage employees to be problem solvers wherever possible. There are two benefits to doing this. Number one, problem solving breaks down big problems into manageable chunks. It's just the way that problem solving works. And second of all, when you put people in charge of problem solving, you energize accountability versus having people waiting around to be told what to do. Number three, very important one here. Employee performance is heavily influenced by answers to 5 questions that are based on behavioral science that are always in the minds of employees, especially when working remotely. And without the right answers to these 5 questions, which I'm going to cover here real quickly, employees are going to fill in their own answers, and that may lead to results you may not want or need. So here are the 5 questions. Number one, what should I do as an employee? Be sure employees understand what they're being asked to do. Again, I go back to the conference board research. Number two, how should I do what you want me to do? And in this case, there are obvious implications for the learning and training aspects of your business. Does your employee training and learning give them the confidence to use what they've learned? What I've found in my experience looking at organizations where learning and training has had diminished results, it's not enough to put the information into people's brains and call your training a success. That learning and what goes into their brains is only valuable if they use it. And if they don't have the confidence to use what you've trained them on, your training is not going to be successful. So think about, how should I do it? Answer it in the context of, is my training and learning going to give my employees the confidence to actually use it on the job? The number 3 question is what I call the performance question. How am I doing at it? In terms of what I'm doing. And here my simple single most important advice would be, don't rely on an annual review only. Remember what I said a moment ago about giving feedback in the moment whenever possible. People crave feedback, and feedback empowers accountability and proactive ability. So avoid relying on an annual review only. Nothing wrong with an annual review, but make sure that there's feedback throughout the year to surround that. Because what annual reviews only tend to do, and I've seen this in a number of organizations, if I'm only getting feedback once a year as an employee, as that annual review comes up and I don't know how I'm doing, it's going to create stress. I remember a quick story that I recall from being a kid growing up. My parents were very big on making sure we had good grades as my 2 sisters and I. And from quarter to quarter, when we had grades, if I didn't seek out feedback from my teachers, I was always worried about having bad grades. As it turned out, I always had decent grades, but I was so stressed out when that report card came out, knowing that if I didn't have good grades, it wasn't going to be a pleasant experience at home. So just from a personal point of view, it just creates stress when people are wondering how they're really doing. So the frequency of feedback helps to eliminate that stress. The 4th question is what I call the motivation question. Why should I do what you're asking me to do? Or put it another way, what's in it for me? It's very important in terms of answering this question to do what you can to connect personal meaning to performance and use recognition and incentives wherever possible to make that personal connection between people and what their desires are and how they want to contribute to the organization, to the organization's goals. Employees who are connected and have that strong sense of a personal connection to the organization's goals, mission, vision, and value, that's the classic definition of an engaged employee. The 5th and final question is, where am I going? Or in other words, what's my future here in this organization? Here it's important to be transparent about opportunities and talk about talk about ways employees can enhance their skills and their values. And that goes along with the how should I do it, the performance question, or excuse me, the how am I doing at it question. Those questions kind of come together very, very nicely in making sure that people understand the opportunities that they have and to talk to them about them so that they know what their future is. Because people who have a clear view of where their future is for the organization, as opposed to wondering, are much more likely to stay as opposed to defecting and leaving the organization. So that last question is very important for employee retention. So in terms of looking at these particular things in terms of finding harmony, remember the key benefits of achieving harmony, which again is helping people make a difference together, making sure that we dissolve big issues into small ones with problem solving, that equally informed people with good communication will seldom disagree, and that harmony also fuels a positive culture where people will stay. Let's move on to talking about improving marketing in an organization where there might be ineffective marketing or there are barriers or opportunities to improve. Ineffective marketing does create complexity and discord in an organization, along with all those other things we've talked about. I've seen a lot of marketing efforts that are a collection of one-off tactics with no strategy tying them together, or rely on blind trial and error, where it's just simply, let's try this and throw it against the wall and see what works. Overly focused on expecting overnight results, and or having messaging to customers that's just not relevant to either prospects or customers. So let's talk about some ways to examine your marketing to confirm it meets some very foundational requirements. And for those of you who might have seen my presentation earlier this year, this is a bit of a redo of that, but there are some basic fundamental principles of marketing that if you miss them, your marketing will suffer results. First and foremost, you have to have a holistic view of your marketing effort. Instead of seeing it as a series of one-off events, try to avoid what I call the shiny key syndrome, which is rushing into a marketing fad of the day or the hot tactic of the day. Oh, we got to do SEO because everybody's doing SEO. We have to be on social media because everybody's on social media. We have to do X, we have to do Y. All of those have their place, but it depends upon what your goals are, where your audience is, and how they want to be communicated to before rushing into a fad per se. Number two, having a written strategy and a plan in place is critically important, as opposed to let's try this and see what works. Goals must be focused on one or more of 4 imperatives that marketing must accomplish. And if your marketing is not focused on one of these imperatives, then it probably is an effort you want to jettison or change. And those 4 imperatives that any marketing effort should do are to, number 1, interact with customers to understand their needs. To 2, establish awareness and preference, establish awareness with them and preference for your products and services. Then generate demand and acquire business around those products and services. And lastly, to make sure that the internal brand among employees and your distribution channel partners is consistent with the external brand promise. If the employees are not in tune to deliver what the brand promise is, the marketing is going to be subject to having time and money wasted. Number 4, expectation of results need to be in line with the time and investment required. Remember I said about expecting overnight results? Marketing is a journey, and it's most often a time-honored effort. So you need to make sure you manage your expectations to make sure that the results you expect are going to be in line with what your commitment to investment and time to achieve them are. Use data about customer behavior to better inform your marketing decisions. As I said earlier, one of the things I've seen is blind trial and error. Let's try this, and if it works, we'll keep trying it. Trial and error that's informed is an important part of marketing, and it's one that is a good part of any marketing plan, but it should be done from an informed point of view. So using data about customers and how they interact with your products and services and how you're operating in the marketplace helps you to make those better trial and error decisions with your messaging and what you're talking about. Last but not least is relevance. 90% of the marketing message should focus on the customer's needs and desires. And if the marketing message is relevant to prospects and customers in a true sense, then you only need about 10% of the message to be about you in order to succeed, for the marketing to succeed. So let's move on to talking about seeing opportunities and finding them. And seeing opportunities is really about thinking about things differently. Einstein once said that, quote, the only source of knowledge is experience, unquote. The reality is that big breaks begin as problems. And I've seen this, and I'm sure some of you have seen it as well, that sometimes the biggest breaks do begin as problems as opposed to just appearing out of thin air. Yes, we should accept the things that are beyond our control, but we should have a mindset that we're always looking for positives and new ways of thinking as part of seeing opportunities. Einstein described this new way of thinking as what he called a state of creative immersion that uses learning, discovery, and positive emotions to find those opportunities. Change is an interesting phenomenon in business. It's important to empower and embrace change. And the best way to do that in an organization is to lead by example. For many people, change usually triggers a fight or flight response. So you have to understand that change can be unsettling to people. So doing what you can to lead by example and to make people comfortable that change is not necessarily threatening, and in fact it opens up new doors. So empowering yourself and others to embrace change will help to open those new doors and to see those opportunities. Now, business and life in general is about dealing with risk, and risk is just a fact of the universe. It's present wherever opportunities exist. The key then is to take intelligent risk that's based on clear thinking, knowledge from experience, helping each other make a difference together, as I said, which is the definition of harmony, and what you can to eliminate the clutter and making the complex simple. Let me kind of do a wrap up here and talk about two last pieces of advice here. I call these two truths of human behavior, and I've seen them operate without exception. And those two truths are what gets talked about in this world is what gets done, and what gets measured in this world is what gets done. And in my 40 years of helping businesses, workplace, and performance, I've observed these two truths play out pretty effectively. So use them as allies to engage people and to make that personal connection to values, goals, and mission, and to talk about and measure the things that will get attention and focus your employees on what's important. So let me conclude by just talking about one last quote from Albert Einstein. This is one of my favorites, and I'll be happy to answer questions. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. So with that, I'll conclude. Michelle, I want to thank you and everybody for listening today, and I'm happy to take some questions.
Okay, great. Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to unmute at this time and ask a question or have a comment?
Hi, Mark. This is Ed Egan.
Hey, Ed.
Yeah, I just want to, I love those top five, what should I do? How should I do it? How am I doing it? Why should I do it? Where am I going? That was great. I think you touched on something really important there. And I've heard that called that scrap learning, right? So making sure that, whatever people are being, you're filling their heads with is making sure that you actually apply it. So I think that concept really touches on those top five things you covered. So thank you for that.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Any other questions? The only dumb question is the one that never gets asked.
Well, while people think about it, I do have comments and questions on Facebook. The first is somebody said, we have more people who are working at home for the first time ever within our business. What are some ways besides weekly meetings where we can stay in touch with them?
Probably the best one, it goes back to what I said about, engaging in dialogue and ramping up that effort. Do what you can as a leader or a manager or a supervisor to be in touch with people and reaching out. And that may be a phone call, it may be a quick Zoom, it may be just a quick touch point with people. And again, and having a conversation and having the conversation around what are they experiencing, what are they seeing. The eyes and ears of your people in an organization are are your eyes and ears. And it's impossible as one individual to be everywhere and see everything. So the collective eyes and ears of all your employees are very important in terms of understanding what's going on in the market in real time, what's going on with customers. So having those one-off conversations and reaching out to them, and as opposed to relying just on the more formal once a week get-togethers and so on, those are important and they're helpful. But what you can do to invest a little time to reach out on an ad hoc basis, or on a rolling basis, making sure you're touching base with everybody over time and just reaching out. And I think you'll find that to the extent that you haven't done it in the past, it will end up having a positive influence, and you'll kind of surprise and delight people that, hey, he's actually or she's actually calling me to ask me what I think.
Christopher on Facebook says, I feel that our marketing is all over the place. The person in charge of our marketing is very young and thinks that we need to be on TikTok, etc. As a business owner, I'm not seeing the months of focus on these efforts resulting in sales. It's actually too hard to track to find out if sales are coming from these efforts. What do you suggest I do as a business owner to express my thoughts on this with her?
I would go back and ask some questions around, what are they trying to accomplish with their marketing, and bring them back to those 4 fundamentals of marketing. And do the check off, and is the marketing and the particular tactic focused on one of those 4 imperatives I mentioned? What is the overall plan? Have you had an opportunity to see the overall plan? And is there a plan in place, or is TikTok the fad that this individual is hot on because they perhaps have seen it work and they think that's the best solution? So it's really a matter of sort of doing a reality check with them and asking some pertinent questions. And again, that dialogue with them will surface what their mindset is, and you'll hopefully be able to determine with that conversation, do they have the right mindset, and are they looking at it from a strategic, holistic point of view, as opposed to a series of one-offs, or TikTok is our savior here, when in fact it may not be. TikTok maybe the right thing, but not knowing the audience and the customers and the products and services, I can't comment on that. So it's really a matter of having that conversation and getting that individual to think about, is what they're doing working against those 4 imperatives. And if that individual would like to have a one-off conversation with me, and my contact information is there, I'd be happy to get into more detail on how to help them do that.
And that leads into a lot of questions about, pretty much to summarize, some of the questions, I guess, are: how does your firm come into a business and start your process? What is that process? Do you do an evaluation first to see what issues the company has, or do you come in and ask what issues they want to focus on? What exactly does your business do for small business owners? So maybe tell us a little bit more about Performance Advisors Group and what you do.
Sure, be happy to. And thanks for that question, or the series of questions lead up to that. My business focuses primarily on B2B organizations. And I work in 3 different areas helping those businesses. Workplace performance, that is helping with people and process improvement to help people work more effectively, to make sure those 5 questions are being answered, that the training and learning is proper, that there's good communication in place, that expectations are being communicated properly, that values, mission, and vision are consistently enforced. So I work in that area. I also help organizations manage the journey of change that might be brought about by a merger and acquisition, or a restructuring of some sort, or maybe a new major focus of the business is going to be now in a new product line. Although anything that's going to require change to be managed as part of the effort, I help with those kinds of things. And then the last area is what I call precision marketing, helping organizations use data and analytics. I consider myself a good analytics enabler. I know the things that tend to work very well in terms of improving your decision making, not only with processes and workflow in the organization, but with marketing as well. I'm certified by the Chief Marketing Officer Council in marketing performance measurement, so that enables me to help an organization analyze and look at and confirm, and prioritize those 4 marketing imperatives, and then establish and prioritize your budget around that, and then establish the appropriate metrics and measures to make sure that you're measuring and validating the results that you're going after using a model and framework that is very disciplined. My overall approach in each of those areas, I'm a very big believer that, like in healthcare, prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. So I'm very big on doing a lot of assessment and listening up front. I will tell you that I am different than other consultants in that I am a firm believer that as a business improvement consultant, there isn't enough money you can pay me or anyone in the consulting world to know your business as well as you and your employees. Rather, what my approach is, the investment you make in me is to help you unlock the hearts and the minds of the people where the solutions to your business lie. It's your employees, it's your channel partners, it's your customers. So that's where I apply my work and my assessment effort to help you unlock those hearts and minds and get at those solutions that your employees really have, or to identify the opportunities that are going missing. So that's how I approach it. I have an approach called the performance puzzle that I use. It's a holistic way of looking at an organization as opposed to looking at it simply from a hierarchical or a functional point of view, which was a lot of performance improvement efforts are done. Usually it's done along either functional or hierarchical point of views. The performance puzzle looks at it more holistically. It looks at 12 different determinants of or impacts on performance. And I will do some assessment. I'll ask a lot of questions and do a lot of listening to identify, where the problems are. So I don't come in and ask what your problem is. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not. So by using that performance puzzle, I'll help the client to unearth, where the barriers are. And then from that point, we delve into and find what are the root causes and then solve the root causes. So hopefully that answered how I approach what I do.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. I have some more comments and questions. How do you rate success with internal marketing approaches?
With internal marketing, the key again is the ultimate measure in my view would be what's the actual customer experience looking like. The customer experience is a function of the products and services themselves, but then also the technology, the bricks and mortar, the processes and workflows, and the people that are actually delivering those products and services. So making sure that there's a holistic view of how those things are coming together and how they're impacting the customer experience. So from there you look at things like Net Promoter Score and customer loyalty measures. Are your customers referring you to others? Are they buying more and more often? And are they tending to stay with you as opposed to leaving? What's interesting about this particular point, I'll bring in another statistic that I've been tracking ever since I was right out of college. I spent 9.5 years in the oil business. And one of the things I came across in my years there was initially some research by the Canadian Manufacturers Association. But I've tracked this statistic and it has remained unchanged for most of my professional life. The number one reason why customers leave and go somewhere else to buy for any business, most people will say, well, it's there's something wrong with it. It's poor service, or there's something wrong with the product or service. And that's partially the answer. The number one reason, 68% of the time, so 7 out of 10 times when a customer leaves, they're leaving because they experienced a poor attitude or indifference to their business on the part of the employees serving them. The number two reason, at only 14% of the time, was a problem with the product or service itself. And then the other excuses, or other reasons, I should say, trail off from that. Customers leave, customers die. Price isn't even near the top of the list. So it's important to make sure that employees are focused on delivering that brand promise or that customer experience that is consistent with the brand promise. So measuring and looking at what's happening with the customer experience and what the customers are seeing will give you an insight back into opportunities are within your processes and your people, what needs to be improved there to make sure the experience is proper.
Another question that came up is, do you review businesses' marketing strategies and help to create a marketing plan for a company if they're not on the right track?
Yes. And again, I'll use that marketing performance measurement model and framework to guide that. It's a very disciplined approach. It's based on some extensive research that the Chief Marketing Officer Council, which is a worldwide organization of key marketing decision makers, they funded this research, and so I'm certified in the application of that. So I would use that particular approach to number one, let's look at the existing plan you have, confirm that you're focused properly on those 4 marketing imperatives and that you have them prioritized in the right order. And then let's look at the metrics and measures. So the answer would be yes.
To comment here on Zoom, Don, who had to leave, he said, liked your points about performance feedback being regular. So that was his comment.
Yep. You can't overstate that.
And I don't have anything else. I'm just getting a great presentation. Yeah, so I don't have anything else here. Anyone on Zoom who would like to unmute? Last chance. All right. All right, well, here is Mark's information. He's left that up for you to contact him if you should have additional questions. You can reach out to him directly, or you can email our group, and we'd be more than happy to assist as well. Again, this was being recorded, so it will be made available on our website later on this afternoon for you to review. And if you have questions at that time, you can go ahead and reach us. I would like to thank everyone again who attended on Zoom, as well as those who are on Facebook Live today. And of course, a big thank you to our guest speaker, Mark James. Thank you, Mark, for being here today.
Thank you. It was my pleasure, and I appreciate all of your attention and some really great questions. Thank you all.
If you are interested in our group, membership, advertising opportunities, or future events, please do visit our website at oakbrookbiz, that's biz.net. Want to thank everyone again. Again, Mark, thank you, and everyone have a great day.
Happy Monday, everybody.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.